Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and this is a very special wide angle with Ashok Vyas. Time-wise, these days when you are watching the show for the first time on ITV Gold are the days of Navaratri, that is the blessings of Mother Goddess is around us. And there are several developments that takes place in the course of our lives, and when there is a change of place for something that you have been associated for many years, then you reflect on your memories, and that's what we will be doing partly today in today's vision, wide angle with Ashok Vyas, because the ITV Gold studio, which some of you are aware, was or is right now as I'm speaking to you, is located at 36-01 36th Avenue, Long Island City, which is in Queens. And now this studio is shifting to New Jersey, Edison. So many of our viewers who are in Edison, New Jersey, would be happy that this programming origination would happen near you. But now coming back to this location, and the love and support which we have had from the New York community would continue, because we will always be related to them. I would also recollect with you very quickly that station was founded by pioneer in his own way, Dr. Bernard Vishwanath and his wife Satya Vishwanath, and they successfully led ITV Gold team. His brother Prakash Bernard and his sons Dev Vishwanath, Deepak Vishwanath, all were part of this ITV Gold family actively. For last few years, the transition took place, and I would also express my grateful memory and prayers for the departed soul of Dr. Bernard Vishwanath and Prakash ji. So now that we are with a new management, Parikh Worldwide Media, Chairman Padma Shri Dr. Sudeep Parikh took over, and he has his own vision, and that also is instrumental in moving this location to New Jersey. So now bringing it back to the present context, I requested my friend Professor Sanjay Patel, who has taught English for 13 decades, to kind of help me in reflecting on our journey here. So it is now you are doing the role that I have been doing with you and with several of our guests. So namaste and welcome.
Namaste, Ashok You've given me a very high honor to do what I've always wanted to do in some level, is to also be a journalist, because part of my job is to constantly investigate, analyze, make application and judgments. So as a professor of English, so I get a chance to ask you questions to probe in also about your journey in the field of media. We had briefly spoken about the motivation to start this. I want to just go further with this. I want to ask you, is there one particular event that you feel that you were touched by in your, since you started in 1998?
You ask a question which leads to several branches of thoughts and ideas, and if we are to pick one instance, it's of course it is very difficult. But still, since you have asked for one, I'll just bring in the reference of the presence of Amitabh Bachchan at Lincoln Center, and it was an interesting experience to be in the presence of this gentleman. And my main motivation to seek to talk to him was I wanted his opinion कि हिंदी भाषा के महत्व के बारे में वो कुछ बोलें और भारतीयता के बारे में वो कुछ बोलें. एंड ही डिडंट डिसअपॉइंट मी ऑन दोज टू फ्रंट्स. तो हिंदी भाषा के महत्व के बारे में भी उन्होंने अच्छा बोला, और मुझे था कि उनके अंदर कुछ संस्कार हैं रामायण के, उनके पिताजी हरिवंश राय बच्चन जी के. सो दैट वाज वन विच आई जस्ट रिकलेक्टेड, बट to do justice, there have been so many things, Sanjay ji, some in the studio, some outside the studio, but allow me to kind of add few more. So talking to some of the spiritual luminary of our time made me very elated, whether it was the presence of Vishwayogi Vishwamji Maharaj, whether it was my interaction with Didi Ma, Jaishri ji, Swadhyay Parivar, or it was Sadguru or Sri Ravi Shankar. My own Guru, fortunately, in 2001 was here, and the place we are sitting, Swami Sri Swaranandagiri Ji Maharaj was here. I also talked to Morari Bapu. I talked to hugging Saint Amma, and several others. And of course, I would take the liberty of also mentioning that I have thoroughly enjoyed the Spirit of India Day parade, as well as grand Ganesh Ratha Yatra, and reporting of some of the events which are charged with the spiritual energy as well as energy of love for Bharat. That would always be with me, and I think it has been a good fortune to be in those places.
Absolutely. And speaking of love for Bharat and the love for the work that you do here, which is very commendable what you've done. And if we look further, we learn so much from our interviews. We learn so much from other people. It is part of our journey as growing as an individual. If we look at from the perspective of self-growth, right? What do you think how have you grown as an individual from your character, so that you feel more and more content in life, that you reach a certain a peaceful state of peacefulness from doing this work?
So I'll take the liberty of diving into my own personal journey of understanding life, of understanding who we are, and the scope of whatever we are doing, and what is the way to work without friction. And I think what we are taught in Bharat or through Bhagavad Gita, or what we hear from sages, and जो हमें कहते हैं कि भाई उनको समर्पित कर दो, या हम we remind ourselves that the power that is giving me the strength to speak, the power that is giving me the ability to think and express coherently, the power that has made it possible that I am sitting with Professor Sanjay Patel here, and probably you are with us as you listen to us. This is not just man-made phenomena. There's much more to it. And keeping that in mind, and I'm coming to you, and if I may recollect, for several years I also presented news in Hindi. तो हिंदी समाचार जब हम प्रस्तुत करते थे संजय जी, तो वो एक टेलीप्रॉम्प्टर यूज़ करके बोलते थे, तो वो लिखा हुआ होता है, फिर हम उसको मूव करते रहते हैं, वो ऐसा रहता है. तो उसको पहले लिखना पड़ता था हिंदी में, क्योंकि हिंदी तब तक कंप्यूटर पर टाइप करना अभी पहले से अधिक आसान हो गया. इट वाज़न्ट सो सिंपल. तो दैट यूज़ टू टेक लॉट ऑफ टाइम. फिर उसको रिकॉर्ड करो, एंड देन आई यूज़ टू वर्क विद द फीड विच वी वर गेटिंग फ्रॉम ANI, तो उसको एडिट करते थे. सो दिस वॉज माई one of the many things which I was doing in a single day, and this involved several hours actually. और अगर मैं ये काउंट करने बैठता कि इसका मुझे मिल क्या रहा है मोनेटरली, तो आई वुड बी वेरी फ्रस्ट्रेटेड. आई एम बीइंग वेरी ओपन अबाउट इट. तो मुझे ऐसा लगता था कि हम जो काम करते हैं उसको हम अच्छे से तभी कर सकते हैं जब एक हमारे अंदर ये कृतज्ञता या ग्रेटफुलनेस हो कि मुझे ये अवसर मिला है. दूसरा, हम उसको अर्पित कर रहे हो जो कि सब जगह है, सर्वव्यापी है. ऐसा कई भाव रखते थे. और क्योंकि हम इतने ज़्यादा अनौपचारिक बात कर रहे हैं, तो आई विल ऑल्सो मैंशन, जब मैं लिखना शुरू करता था, क्योंकि मेरा जो परिवेश रहा है ऐसा, तो मैं पहले ऊपर लिखता था ओम जय श्री कृष्णा, एंड देन आई वुड स्टार्ट द डेट, और वो सब लिखता था. तो ये सारी चीज़ें कहीं ना कहीं आपको उस फ्रेम वर्क के साथ अलाइन कर देती हैं, जो आपको उत्साह और ऊर्जा से भर देता है.
I've shown many of your interviews to my colleagues who are also professors. The first thing they tell me is that he has a natural, innate ability to guide questions in an interview, and they find you very impressive. And I guess my question is, how do you know what questions to ask when you're interviewing someone? I mean, many times I see it just comes spontaneously to you. I don't even see that you're prepared for it, because in an interview, things happen randomly, answers come from the interviewee without any expectation. How do you know what to ask? How do you prepare? Yeah.
So there are two kinds of interviews. In some interviews, you need to have the basic data or statistics or information about the person, if there is some subject like that which involves very intricate details. I, of course, read, I write few points before that. But many times there are some question or interactions related to life in general. Sometimes they are related to culture, spiritual aspect of our being, etc. So I think that comes out of your own continuous focus on working to know yourself. That has been a part of my journey, whether it is preparation for interview or not. So if it comes in the interview, it is, let us say, if गंगा बह रही है, अपने उससे से एक वो निकाल दिया, अंजलि भर लिया और अर्पित कर दिया. तो जो हमारा मिलना होता है किसी के भी साथ में, whether it is for interview, for anything else, what comes out is who you are, I think. तो दूसरा क्या होता है कि with practice and by the grace, when you have the opportunity of interacting several times, your being present in the moment increases. So if I am paying attention to what you are saying, and then there is some river of consciousness in my mind which sort of connects with what you are saying, then what comes is just a natural extension of what you are saying, and both of us are one. So many questions would come only if the speaker you are talking to, he has said something which triggers this. So, and you just enjoy having that rhythm of communicating. I think that says something to what you asked.
Absolutely, absolutely. As an experienced journalist, do you feel that the institution of journalism, how is it working in the world today? Do you think it needs to be revamped? What do we need to help change it, to bring it to the state in which you do as the wide angle, to bring a certain perspective which is of truth, which is of with integrity? What do we need to do that so that it doesn't become slanted that we're seeing in other parts, as we discussed many times in other interviews? What can we do to help the institution to bring back its true identity, rather than seeing yellow journalism or propaganda journalism? What do you think is necessary to fix that?
So your question is relevant, and I would say good question. Maybe I'm not the right person to respond to it, and I'll tell you why. The way I see it in a subjective way, and I kind of feel that I probably don't have that macro way of analyzing it. And the macro way of analyzing it, as I see, it doesn't look very promising, but individual looks promising. So I'll tell you why I am saying what I'm saying. Let me say macro level. When you, macro meaning big picture, you think that people want to be guided by where you have the commercial success, and then you dilute whatever, and you feel that, oh, this will work, so you kind of mix and match things, etc., or you will create some sensational sort of interaction. You'll have people having shouting match in the studio, and you feel that this is going to draw people, and maybe it works. I don't know much about that. So that is one way. But my personal thing is, may not be practical, but even during my radio days, somebody told me that what you do, you should always keep in mind that there is one listener who is listening to you. So you are not catering to masses. You are catering to masses, yet you are catering to one. Because at the end of the day, it is the one and one which multiply, or which kind of adds up, and how they add up is beyond my understanding, actually. And because you are asking about something that also involves our upbringing, our approach towards life, our expectations from our work, from our life, etc., which would have so many factors that would combine to give a result to someone whom we say, oh, he is a journalist. I think everyone, first and foremost, is a human being, and a human being who has love, compassion, need to be loved, And when you want to feel good, you want others to feel good also. So you are out there to make people feel good about themselves. I think that might be the sum of the way I have unconsciously or consciously operated.
You gave a very good point about, do we want to just have viewers and ratings to if when there's sensationalism going on in the studio with arguments, or do we just cause to what the topic of the day is? And that's very important to understand that. And you mentioned earlier about the mission going further to New Jersey. What are the future plans now that you are moving to New Jersey for?
Okay, so that I think is something beyond my scope to address. And I have just been a part of the ITV Gold team, but I'm not the guiding ship, captain ship. For that, I think Padma Shri Dr. Sudhir Parikh, I feel he is aware that there is very thriving and vibrant Indian American community in that area, and there are many of our guests as well as our friends who have been to ITV Gold Studio here in New York, and I think we will be able to serve the community in several ways. There are several cultural events happening here, there also. But to bring it back, I think the role that ITV Gold has played would more or less have the same kind of direction, but it would also have variation based on the host, whosoever is, because as I told you, no two people would be alike in their way of talking, in their way, their mannerism. So I think the creator of the whole universe is infinite and is so creative. so what I would say is it would evolve in its own way, and what direction it takes may be the same direction with a little bit more freshness, probably by being at a new location, trying to settle down, trying to figure out things. Yeah.
As an experienced journalist, and I've seen at the universities, they have media centers, and young students who actually want to go into this profession. They have a very deep passion for it, and I know them personally, many of them. What advice would you give them as they enter this field?
That's a good. I like all questions are good, and when you are answering, I think that many interviewee do this. They say it's a very good question. They get a time to think. So I'm thinking. One, if you love to express yourself, then only you should think about media journalism. Many people are very, very shy, and they don't. They are not people person, and they know. And there is nothing wrong. I mean, everybody doesn't have to be people person. So one, I think if you are a people person, then you should consider getting into the media journalism as one advice. Secondly, if you are sincere, honest, these sound very ideal words, but sincere to what you are doing, I mean, and see, in long term, the kind of satisfaction which would become a part of you would come from your integrity with your work, and what your work is guided by the kind of programming that you are doing, and sometimes you design the kind of programming that you do. That is the beauty of media. There is a lot of creativity and a lot of openness, yet there are some commercial compulsions, and it is a teamwork. So you should be able to have a kind of a rhythm of your ego, how it operates with ego of other people, and so all these things would matter. But you should have the quest for knowledge also. I think that would be a part of the kitty of a journalist. But something which I would confess that I probably don't have that much is the modern day challenges requires you to be more candid, and sometimes not just candid, courageous not just courageous, the kind of journalism that I see which is thriving and which is very successful, they take a stand. So there is a very thin line today between activism and journalism. In my case, I haven't been like that. I have, if I would say, I have kind of been more towards the spiritual side of life. So maybe if there is a something like spiritual activism, maybe I would put me somewhere close to that. But what I was saying, I will mention this Arnav Goswami, let's say. Many people don't like him, many people love him. But what I would say is Arnab, and there are some journalists who take a cause and pursue it to the extent with the kind of force which requires you to be able to bear the brunt of the potential attacks also. I think I never considered that as a part of media journalism. But those who are coming up, if they want to be in that sort of space, then probably they have to see if they have the courage of the kind that is needed for a soldier, probably. I'll put there. And there is no end to working on your craft. Sometimes you do it consciously, sometimes you do it unconsciously. If, just few minutes that we have, I'll also share my exercise, and which I used to do with my daughter also. So if we are going, I mean, when they were young, I would say, let us describe the scene that we have in front of. So, I mean, whether there is a red light, it is turning green, this car is going, or whatever scenes you have, you just create word picture to describe it. That helps somewhere, I mean, in stimulating and triggering your ability to express with a flow.
Ashok, well, thank you for letting us into your mind. We got a chance to understand the whole process of how you became, the successful journalist, and who has tremendously expounded these beautiful thoughts to society, giving people the right vision and right information, and giving us an angle to look at life in the right way.
So I really thank Sanjayji for accepting my request. And as we move towards concluding part of our conversation, I'll ask you one question. When you look at interviews, what is it that that you see makes someone a good interviewer?
I see that they are not afraid to ask the tough questions. And that is the key thing, because sometimes we try to some of the questions are asked that are just to be correct in the sense of being woke. But you ask questions which are probing, and it's important to get to the questions because we want to ultimately have the truth. And that is the key thing. Right.
So I think in this context, I would say that we should have the ability to ask candidly with politeness. That's the and we should have decency, and we should have respect for whosoever he, she is in terms of what they bring to the table as far as their thought process is concerned. So I'll thank Professor Sanjay Patel for giving me the opportunity to reflect in some part of my journey with ITV Gold from this studio, and this probably is the last day while we are recording in the studio located at Long Island City in New York. And as I mentioned earlier, under the leadership of Padma Shri Dr. Sudeep Parekh, the studio venue is now shifting to Edison. So very soon we will have most of our programs coming from that space. Once again, as I thank Professor Sanjay Patel, there are so many important things that have taken place right here in our lives, and we were able to share some of it with you as well. I once again thank him and thank all of you with lots and lots of good wishes. This is Ashok Vyas. Namaste.